We are live. I do want to thank our advertisers, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, Graphics to Go Incorporated, Firearms Safety Institute, and of course the Firearms Policy Coalition. Viewers, please, if you do only catch us on video and you don't catch the podcast, go visit our sponsors. Without them, we wouldn't have a show. It's gotten too expensive to do without sponsors. We do so much that couldn't do without them. So please go check them out. I do also want to mention, as we get going here, we do have a Q&A app enabled on our Hangout. You can send a question right straight into the Hangout. We'll answer it on the air. Also, if you comment on the YouTube, we will catch that and we'll mention that on the air. And we'll answer your questions directly. It may take a minute or two, but we will get to them. So this is going to be episode 330 of the Polite Society podcast, and we'll be getting going here in just a second. Is everybody ready?
I'd be ready.
I'll be ready, boss.
Gary?
I think Gary froze up.
He gets stage shy, you know.
It has been unseasonably cool up in the area, but I don't think it's that cold.
Gary, are you with us?
Totally. I'm with you.
Okay, cool. I'll take that. All right, let me make sure recorder is ready. Yep, recorder is ready to fly, so coming in 5. Hi, and welcome to the Polite Society podcast, presented by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We're recording this one live Sunday, May 24th, 2015. I'm Paul Lathrop.
I'm Rob Morris, and on tonight's show we talk with John Pierce about Washington, D.C. gun owners taking a step toward concealed carry.
I'm John Richardson, and we finally get a chance to talk with our own Rachel Malone about her progress supporting open carry legislation in Texas.
I'm Gary Doherty, and in one of our GGUs, a neighbor did more than be a good witness. He saved his neighbor next door from an ongoing attack and abduction. Of course, the good guy had a firearm and a concealed carry permit. So climb aboard.
Strap in.
And hang on.
Episode 330 of the Polite Society podcast starts right now. Okay, let's get going. John, you're up first, man. Personal news segment. What have you been up to since, it's been 2 weeks since we recorded. What's been up with you?
Well, last weekend I went to a family reunion. I got to see cousins whom I hadn't seen in 30 years or more. I also saw a cousin whose wedding I was in 53 years ago. I also saw pictures of myself as a 5-year-old. So that was fun. Afterwards, we took time to visit the cemetery in which my dad and my grandparents were buried. Being this is Memorial Day weekend, I really want to recognize those who served our country and died in its service. And I think it's important to remember these men. It is important to remember these men and women. Now, my dad didn't die while on active duty, but did have to take a medical retirement due to non-combat health issues. And I do think he had a reduced lifespan due to the stresses of his service, as have so many other veterans. Meanwhile, on the firearms front, I added a Spanish FR8 to the collection thanks to Ken S., a fellow North Carolina gunny who I'd met through Facebook. The FR8 is a Mauser 98 design adopted by Spain in the 1950s. Given they didn't have enough set-me auto rifles, some of the Spanish soldiers were issued these rifles, which had many of the same features as the set-me, including being in 7.62 NATO caliber. It's kind of a small bolt-action rifle that just looks cool. And I've included a link in our show notes so that people can see what it looks like.
Now, the FR8, is that I know you said it's a bolt-action gun. Is it a magazine-fed, tube-fed?
It has the internal magazine.
Okay.
The normal 5-shot Mauser magazine.
Oh, so now is the magazine interchangeable with the Mauser then?
No, internal magazine. I mean, you would have to use stripper clips.
Okay, all right.
You load it from the top.
You load from the top.
There is mud. Sorry.
So you do load it with the clips?
You could. You can also just load it
by
a
hand.
bullet at a time.
Oh, okay. Mm.
But it's, you know, it came with a nice bayonet and a sling, and it looks unusual for a bolt-action rifle, which is, to me, added to its allure.
Yeah, doesn't it have that strange tube under the fore end, and you kind of go, oh, is
It
that
looks
a
like
gas
a
port on a bolt gun? What?
It looks like a gas tube, but actually it's where they hide the cleaning kit.
Huh.
Jeez. All right, fine.
All right. Well, Gary, you're up next, man. What's been up with you?
A few things. I took one of my students shooting with his new gun, and we ordered a inside the waistband holster from Jason Christensen at Concealment Solutions, and mag pouch. He really liked the gun. We got a
What kind of gun was he shooting?
Sig Sauer P938.
Ooh.
Which looks similar to, it looks like a little baby 1911.
Yeah.
We shot, actually we went shooting twice before we decided on a gun, and he has decided he is more comfortable with the safety as opposed to one without.
Huh.
I explained the pros and cons of both, and that's where he's at with it. And I said, you know, you're going to need to do a lot of extra training with that and make sure you're every time coming out of that holster and clicking that safety off every time. So it becomes second thought or not thought, whatever you want to call it. That's how I think about it when I'm handling 1911s. It just happens. I don't even have to think about it now. I mean, I've been carrying for what, 5-6 years now, and for obviously longer than that. It's like breathing to me. It just happens. If it's not, I think it's a problem. Also shot the new rifle, the Smith & Wesson M&P 15 Sport. On John's recommendation. Ton of fun. Very cool. Learning rifle sights. Well, those are what? What are those called, John? Are those A2 sights, or how do they classify that?
I think they would be, yeah.
Yeah. So that was very cool. I have not bought a sling yet, so it's a little bit heavy. Without that extra support, but like I said, we were just plinking with it, having fun, and it was a ton of fun. Shot the Para, shot another 2 boxes through it, and we're getting past the malfunction issue. Kind of a break-in. Went through the 2 boxes with no malfunctions. I'm going to go through another 2 boxes of my hollow points, my defense ammo. And if they run through without a 1911 holster, which interestingly enough are the exact same size, so no change there. We'll have the same grip location, which will be nice to not have to alter that, and that'll be the carry gun with the Glock 30 as the backup. So, a lot of shooting, a lot of fun.
Very cool. Well, Rob, you're up next, man. What's you? It's been 3 weeks since you've been on the air.
Yeah, we've been apart for a while. God, boy, I'm going to leave things out because life's been pretty busy. It's great to hear you guys again. One of the things when I was doing it, I thought, oh, I got to tell them. I went and shot the Chiappa Rhino revolver.
Now that's that. I hate to interrupt you, but that's the revolver that's got the cylinder on top of the barrel.
Right. The barrel fires from the bottom
Well, the
hole.
cylinder's still in the back. It just fires from the bottom of the rotation of the cylinder.
Right. And therefore the hammer isn't external swinging from the top. They have something that looks like a hammer, so you can cock it, but it's really a cocking lever.
Right.
And you know, you and I, we pick up a new gun and somebody goes, what do you think? And you go, obviously making a good trigger is hard to do. Making a good trigger in a revolver is really hard to do. And this one, it sort of had a break, but it was a 13-pound break. I mean, wow.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I saw in a lot of the reviews, was that the design is cool, but making that trigger smooth and all that is difficult, complicated, and they don't exactly have it right yet.
Now, for a, oh my God, things go bump in the night, I need to protect somebody. For everything except the hostage shot, okay, I'm down with it. It's cool. But, oops, yeah.
Did the trigger have stacking where
It wasn't too bad. Well, did it have stacking? No, it was really stiff right from the beginning and never got better until it barely moved and broke.
Okay.
So I bought and shot a Browning 1911-22. It's the 80% 1911, and the barrel actually toggles. It's not a fixed barrel. And I did that because I ran into some students whose hands were so small, they had trouble with my Ruger Mark II, and I'd go, wow, you know, I've got mitts, so I wanted my students to be able to sure they had something they could shoot comfortably. But that brought something up. Gary, you were talking about the SIG with an external safety, a thumb safety.
Right.
I heard an interesting description of the place that thumb safeties are recommended, and I thought, yeah, that's right. If you carry off body.
Hmm.
You're going to reach in a purse. Okay, you know, given the things that come in and out, you're going to carry in a bag, in a briefcase. No, maybe, you know. And I thought, you know, that's interesting. It gave me something to think about.
Well, what's the difference?
If it's off body,
Yeah.
are you positive that it has it's completely retained in the trigger guard? The trigger guard is completely enclosed, can't come out with it in that bag.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. If you've got it loaded in a full holster and it's covered, secured, essentially you've got retention in there. No, you probably don't need it. Anything else? Yeah, thumb safety.
Yeah. Well, you know,
again, it gave me something to think about. It'd be fun to talk about sometime.
yeah, like I said, it's just it's what I've been shooting for forever.
Oh.
So it's just, you know, like I said, second nature to me. If I was in a competition, for example, and missed a safety, then I'm sure my whole 1911 collection would become in jeopardy. I would have to rethink everything. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I know people that have come across that and switched everything. So I understand it completely.
Well, I'm with you. I mean, I competed in an IDPA match about a week ago and used my 1911. Yesterday I competed in one and used my Glock, which was fun, and I learned a lot. Slightly extended magazine release and the slide release to my 9. Thank you for those suggestions. I got my concealed carry permit from Arizona, and we had a local awards dinner for gun owners of California. I got a thank you for showing up all year long award.
Okay.
And, well, you know, when the guy goes, hi, we need help at the gun show. Hi, we're going to go talk to this group. Hi, we want to go talk to someone in law enforcement. You know, sometimes you win just by making sure you show up.
Attendance counts, in other words.
If nobody's there, you lose, right? And also, I'm showing off on the video. I won this shirt for having the best shooting time or the best shooting score on the simulator that they had at the banquet. Well, I'm not that good. It was the best simulator time during a particular hour. The first hour, second hour, and it pays to go to the simulator while everybody else is in the dinner line because the good shooters evidently weren't in that hour. I was on Lock and Load Radio with Bill Frady, and I'll be on it again on Friday to talk about one of my blog articles.
I actually got a chance to listen to that. I listened to it the same day you posted in our staff page that it was on. You guys did a great job. We do 15-minute interviews. He had you on for an hour, and I thought you guys did a great job with that.
I really appreciate the fact that we go a segment and have a few minutes of commercials, because when Bill goes to a commercial break, you can go get a sandwich.
Yeah.
And John, I owe you another thank you for pointing me at that book by gun blogger Jim Curtis, the Gray Man series.
Mm-hmm.
I just finished the first one.
And I hear the third is almost ready to release. And I can't wait. I won't get much sleep then that night, but hey.
Okay. Well, Susan, you're up next. Not a lot, I guess, going on with us. I mean, well, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Beyond Concealed Carry Enhanced class that went. But anything you want to talk about that's been going on with you?
It's not gun related. I did not get to take the Beyond Concealed Carry class, but I did get to meet Bob and Ben, and we took them out to dinner. This time of year is not my busy time of guns. It's trying to get everything ready for the Renaissance Festival, which is coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and we are. I always screw this.
We are the local nobility.
Okay.
We are the Earl and Countess of Shrewsbury.
Now, with that rank, does that mean you guys help turn the crank and make the event happen?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we are the ones that give a speech when the gate opens at 10 o'clock both days.
Yeah, me talking. Imagine that.
Yeah, we greet Queen Elizabeth and welcome her to our fair because it's our shire, so we welcome her to our fair and hope that she has a pleasant time. And we beat the peasants down and tell them to get back in their little hidey hole and leave the queen alone, and we have a good time.
But I mean, who organizes it? Who makes sure?
It's an all-volunteer group.
Wow.
It's our 14th year. There is a board of directors, and then there are the various committees. I am on the education committee. Paul is not because he's not usually in town when we meet. But it's all volunteer.
And they do spend a ton of time putting this together.
Yeah, we work on it all year long.
Oh, it's got to be.
We have gotten, after 14, like I said, this is our 14th year. We've gotten it down to a fine art. Most of our fare is stored in a 10 by 20 foot garage or storage unit and a 53-foot semi-trailer.
Wow.
And yesterday we were at the fairgrounds and we unloaded the trailer. We had enough people helping. It took 3 hours to unload the trailer. And then the towers that we have to separate the various parts of the fair are built in 8 sections. All we have to do is bolt the sections together and it's done. So, and we'll spend the next 3 days doing that, and then they're going to take a couple days off for Rib Fest, and then we'll go back, and within a week and a half we will have built a 1575 town.
Cool. Yeah. How long is it up? Is it just for the weekend, or?
Yep, just a weekend.
2 days.
Okay.
2 days,
Saturday
2
and
days,
Sunday.
and then Sunday night at about 7 o'clock we'll start tearing it down, and it will all be back in the trailer in the garage by Tuesday morning. We have to be off the fairgrounds by midnight Tuesday.
Okay.
And
So that's what I'm doing to keep busy right now, is trying to get everything up and ready. And we have several friends who came down for our vow renewal a couple years ago, who are coming back down for a visit. And so we're getting ready, all that ready to go. So I'm getting ready to loan out garb to several people. And
I'm getting ready to drink mead is what I'm getting
Yeah.
ready to do.
And now, how many people show up for the Renaissance Festival?
Last year we had over 10,000 people.
Oh my!
Yeah, it's
Wow.
big. It's big. Now, the year before that, the year we renewed our vows, it was down because Saturday was the day we renewed our wedding vows was an ugly day.
It was cold. It was miserable. It was June, and I had my winter cloak on. It was that cold and wet.
Wow.
And
So
yeah, so we it was that year attendance was down, but usually we get really good weather.
Saturday was down, but Sunday was back up again.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't break any records, but it wasn't bad. When we still broke even.
Yeah.
It's run as a nonprofit organization. We do different things with education, and 2 weeks ago I was at Monday night I was at the Kaylee branch of the library. Tuesday night I was at the Ronnie branch of the library. We were discussing defensive weapons in the medieval and Renaissance times.
That was fun. I got to take part in that on the second one she talked about.
No, the third one. We were at
Third
the main
one? Okay.
library.
At the main library, and everybody brought their swords and their
Their halberds and
Yeah.
their axes.
oh yeah, and there was a bunch of kids that came out, and we talked to them about self-defense in 1575, and had a great time. I guess that leaves me. I did take the Beyond Concealed Carry Enhanced class. I had a great time. Learned a ton of stuff. I want to send out a thank you to Bob Main and Ben Branham for coming up and teaching. I also want to send a thank you out to everybody who attended. I don't want to mention anybody because I would forget somebody, and I don't want to do that. But thank you to everybody that came up and took the class. Had a blast. There's going to be some audio that I have not yet got edited, but there is going to be some audio from a dinner we had on Sunday night after the class wrapped up that I'll run with this program after the interviews. But just
Are you at least going to thank me?
yes, and I do need to thank my beautiful wife Susan. She
I cooked chicken 2 days. 2 days. 16 meals.
Yes.
Both days.
and delivered, not just cooked, delivered.
Delivered.
Yes.
Whoa.
So, but yeah, I goodness, I've been through 2 professional training classes. This is my 3rd, and I find, and I'm hoping this continues forever. I don't know that it will. I don't think. I think the what do you call it? The law of diminishing returns will pretty much guarantee that it doesn't. But I can honestly say I picked up something from every class that made it absolutely worth it for me to attend. This particular class, what I picked up the most was the functionality of point shooting. And I'm going to kind of take off on the side here a little bit, and I want to talk about that for a little bit. Folks, when you are in a gunfight, chances are, if you go to the studies that have been done, chances are that gunfight is going to be at bad breath range. Somewhere between 3 and 5 feet is where it starts. And honestly, folks, you do not need your sights. And what I found taking this class is really how far back I can go, and by the way, while moving and clearing malfunctions, which were intentionally set, and doing all kinds of things. But how far back I can get and still make reliable, accurate hits while just putting metal over meat and engaging the trigger. I was making accurate hits at out to about 20 feet without as nearly as quickly as I could pull the trigger. And what my biggest challenge is as I'm retreating, and we're backing up, sometimes straight, sometimes at an angle, but as you're backing up, finding out where you need to start transitioning to make sure you've got good sight alignment. And we were making accurate hits way back there when you did transition to sights. One particular drill, we started off with, we had just completed the hostage situation, and then we decided what the next thing was we're gonna start up close, and we're gonna quickly go from low ready to headshot. Easy if you're nearly touching distance. That's an easy shot to make. Okay, now take a step back. Okay, now take a step back. Okay, now take a step back. You get out to 15, 20, 25 feet. Yes, you can still make that headshot, but it's going to take you a few seconds to get the proper sight alignment because with a hostage situation, of course, you're going to want to make absolutely certain of where that round is going because in a real hostage situation, they're not going to give you much room. So, but yeah, folks, if you haven't taken a specific class where they talk about point shooting, and they do a significant amount of point shooting, do that. People down in Texas, you got a great advantage because Bob and Ben are teaching down there all the time. They're also going to be up in Ohio later this year. They're going to be in Seattle later this year. But even if it's not Bob and Ben, if you go to a Suarez International or if you can go out to Front Sight, anywhere where you can get a lot of experience doing some point shooting with an instructor, it'll really benefit you.
But I was just thinking, Paul, that exercise you just talked about, try and shoot instinctively at short distance without the sights. Now take a step back, repeat it, and you'll find yourself transitioning harder and harder onto the sights as you back up.
Mm-hmm.
There are not many ranges where you can do that.
Oh, I'm lucky. My home range, the Del Rapids Sportsman's Club, just north of Sioux Falls, will let us do that. Now you got to be, if you're just going there as a member and you set up and you're going to be doing some practice, of course you got to be aware of people that are around you. You can't do that as somebody else's own. But yeah, if you got the range alone, which is not all that uncommon, yeah, you just set up and go do it. I guess I'm kind of lucky there. I want to talk about a couple other things about that class. And as I mentioned in my beginning diatribe, they intentionally made some malfunctions. Two types of malfunctions they intentionally made. One was a snap cap. You handed your snap cap, your magazine to either Bob or Ben. And by the way, what I love about this class is you start with a full magazine. Whatever your gun will handle, you start with that magazine full. Mm-hmm. You decide how many rounds you're going to use. Well, somewhere in that magazine, and it could be round 1, it could be round 15 in my case, but somewhere in there they put a snap cap, and you worked until that came up, and then you, of course, did your tap, rack, bang. The other thing they did is they took a spent round, and of course you had to make sure you looked at the round to make sure it was the right round for your gun, but they took a spent round, you ejected your mag, you made your gun totally safe, you totally unloaded, locked the safety back, then you put the magazine in, left the slide open, kept the thing pointed down range, and they inserted the spent round into your chamber from the top.
Like you had a double feed.
Right, and they hammered the slide closed.
Yeah, now you get, yep.
You are jammed. We're doing now. I've got 3 regular carry magazines, 15 round stock Glock magazines, and I've got a for fun 30 round magazine that will fit into the Glock. We go into this, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking I'm going to have a little fun with this because I have been a little light on my round count. I've got plenty of ammo. And what you do after that is you shoot as many rounds as you like. And it's been a long time since I've done a magazine dump, so I was going to do a good and proper magazine dump. Well, they get the thing set, and I go from low ready, and I bring the gun up real fast so I can get that trigger pull done so I can do my clearing, and I cannot get the thing cleared.
It's hard.
And what they have you do is you put your left hand over the firearm, you grip it hard, and you take your right hand and you slam like you're punching the back of the gun. Well, while everybody else is doing their magazine dump, because mine I've been having problems with, it was they jammed it in there so tightly, I was having some problems. Everybody else is doing their magazine dump, and here I'd hit the back of my Glock so hard, the thing flew out of my hands about 2-3 feet in front of me. Ben's standing behind me laughing because there's no way in hell I'm stepping forward to get that gun.
Yeah.
Everybody else is letting off their magazines. And then the other thing they did that was kind of unique is you worked with again, full magazine, and very, very, there was exactly one time when I emptied my magazine. And we were doing a drill where you had a buddy. This is divided up into two relays, and you had a buddy with you, and you were either advancing on or retreating from the target. Well, you started with advancing, and then you got up, and they called ceasefire. We all stopped, reloaded, and backed up. Well, I've got my big old heavy, fully loaded 30-round mag, because I don't really want to do a reload in this. I'm going to just fire as I go up, fire as I go back. Well, somehow or another, when I get reload, when you reload and you're off the line, you just leave the gun in your holster, hit the mag release, pull out your old mag, put the new mag in, refill your old mag, put it in your belt carrier. So I'm doing that. I didn't slam that 30-round magazine in real good and hard as the gun was in my holster. It was just kind of sitting there. So we're getting ready to advance, and I've got my buddy behind me, his hands on my collar, and the reason for that is they want everybody to walk up at the same pace, stay in a line. Nobody gets ahead of anybody. And I come out of the holster, come up, first shot, and that big old heavy 30-round mag clunk to the ground. Well, not a huge deal. The other thing they've got is they drilled and drilled and drilled, and I think it's a great idea. If you've got a malfunction, don't stop moving. Clear it. Do what you got to do. Get your gun working, but keep moving. Well, I reached down, got my new mag out, slammed that thing, and I meant slam it into the gun. And I'm walking forward, and underneath my foot, I can feel that 30-round magazine getting stepped into the mud.
Oh.
And so I start firing as we're going forward, and we get up there, and I just dumped the mag. As fast as I was so upset that I burned that mag. I just knew it was never going to work again. I just as quickly as I could emptied the mag. They called ceasefire. I pulled one of my other mags out, reloaded, and then we did the backwards. But yeah, when I got that mag out, it was nasty dirty. And I tried using it one more time later in the day, and it fed the first one, never fed another one. So, but it's not a carry mag. It's kind of a fun mag. So if I were gonna burn a mag, that was the one to burn. So
how do you clean a Glock mag after you've given it a mud bath?
I haven't yet. It's honestly still sitting in my. Just a second here.
You could strip that down. I mean,
yeah, it can be. Yeah. It's one of these cheap Korean things though. It's not a Glock mag.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a little different. And I haven't even Monday after the class I was taking them around and doing the stuff they needed to do before they flew back, and then Tuesday I left, and so I haven't I didn't get home again until yesterday late afternoon. I haven't had time to do hardly anything since the class. So I think that pretty well covers the Beyond Concealed Carry class. Listeners, folks, if you can get to somewhere where they train you point shooting and they spend a significant amount of time working on point shooting, it is well worth your time. You will be amazed how quickly you can acquire your target while moving and make accurate shots and get the problem taken care of without using your sights. It is stunning. One of the things I ever since I got my Glock, I want to replace these sights. These sights suck. I want to replace these sights. These sights suck. I don't think I'm going to replace my sights anymore.
Are they the originals, essentially?
Yes. The original Gen 3 Glock sights is what I've got on my Glock.
Wow.
The special plastic sights.
Yeah, the ones that instead of the 3 dots, you've got the 1 dot and a goalpost.
Right.
That's what I got, and I think that's the way it's going to stay. Just because, statistically speaking, if I'm going to use my handgun in a self-defense situation, I'm probably not going to be using the sights that much anyway, statistically speaking. And if I do, I'm good enough with these that I can probably make that shot without much of an issue anyway. I may, in the future, go to a tritium night sight, but if I do, it's only because I want the night sight capability. For regular daytime shooting, this is these sights will work just fine. So,
Paul, I went and got, I'll call them combat sights, put on my Glock.
okay.
Which I think you're absolutely right. But if it was more fun to shoot at a target with combat sights, would it make it more enjoyable to practice, therefore you'd do it more? You know, I learned everything I know about outfitting a gun from the great enabler, so I'm just trying to help you spend another $50 on sights, man.
Yeah, no, I understand. Looking at it from right now, though, honestly, I think rather than putting the $50 in sights, I think here very soon I hear Magpul's going to be coming out with some really cool 40 caliber Glock magazines, and I think my $50 might be better spent getting a couple of those, or there's other things I could get. I want to maybe look at getting some work done to the grip. Getting a different something done with the grip. So the grip is I'm trying to remember who the student's name was Paul. And Paul, I'm sorry, I cannot remember your last name to save my life right now. But we're taking up a ton of time, and I'm sorry, listeners, but he had a Smith & Wesson. I don't remember. It was a semi-auto. I don't remember the model number, but it was a 40 caliber, and he had a training barrel with him. And he was the only one of us there that had a training barrel. We didn't have any blue guns, so he got the training barrel out, installed it, and allowed Bob and Ben to use it for some demonstrations while we were getting a little bit of rain at lunchtime on Sunday.
Now, are these solid barrels? Is that what a training barrel is?
Solid plastic barrels, so that the
gotcha.
cannot be chambered. And they were working on gun takeaways. And
wow.
So they said somebody volunteered to shoot Ben, and nobody was standing up, and so I stood up and said, Ben, I'm real sick of you getting more downloads than me. And anyway, but he's got a grip, a checkered grip on that Smith & Wesson. That I don't know if you folks are friends with me on Facebook, and I'll go ahead and I'll post it to the show page as well. I gripped that thing tightly enough that it was a little difficult for him to get the gun away from me. He did eventually do it, but while turning the gun, he had me remove my finger from away from the slide where it normally sits and grip it with my whole hand below the trigger guard. And I was gripping so hard, he said, don't let me take it. And I was taking him at his word. I was trying to make it difficult for him, but he ripped a good chunk of skin off the knuckle of my finger. For our live viewers, I don't know how well you can see that, but
Ick.
it didn't really hurt, but it's going to take a while to heal.
Well, I appreciate you donating a little bit of skin to the cause.
Yeah, I had some skin in the game. I absolutely.
Yes, there you go.
All right. Well, we're getting a little long here, so we're going to go ahead. Before we go to break, I got several things I need to mention. Number one, I got a text message just a little bit ago from Jason Christensen just before we went to air. He wanted me to ask me if I could put the word out that he's doing a promotion this week. Any order comes in now through the 31st, if it has the message, and it's got to be this exact message, I'm a swag hag. The order notes. They're going to get a little bonus with their order. That could be anything from stickers, a keychain, something from their developing tactical line. It could be anything. But use that message in the order notes. I'm a swag hag, and you'll get a little extra something. Also, that they're having an open house out there at his shop on the 30th from 9 to 4 Mountain Time. And folks, if you're in the Utah area and you haven't been to Jason Christensen's shop, get there and just oogle at the amount of blue guns he's got mounted on his back wall. When I was there, it was huge, and he's told me it's almost doubled since then. Which I need to make it out to Utah here again in the not too distant future so I can see that. So.
Well, this is a brand new shop.
Yeah.
And if you can't make it out there, check out his demonstration videos when he talks about the holsters. They're all hanging on or a lot of them are hanging on the wall behind, and you just go, gun. Look at all those blue guns. It's just they're stacked up on his pegboard.
And they're stacked sometimes 2 and 3 deep.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely.
I also need to mention that Chaz Murray has got a class coming up July 24th, 25th this year up in Utah. Seems like one of the gun dudes, Tactical Tommy, is going to be helping him out with that. You can go to concealmentsolutions.com/training to sign up for that one. And let's see here. I got one other thing I needed to mention.
Kathy Jackson.
Yeah, Kathy Jackson class. Now, I want to mention about this, and folks, you're going to hear me talking a little bit more about this Kathy Jackson class now that the Beyond Concealed Carry class is done. But that Kathy Jackson class, if you're an experienced shooter, don't think this is just a beginner shooter class. It's not. Intermediate and advanced shooters can get something out of this too, because she sets up her shooting line in 2 relays. She's going to take the beginning shooters in one relay, the advanced and the intermediate to advanced shooters in another relay. You're going to be doing different things in the beginners. You're going to be doing different, practicing more advanced skills. So if you've taken the Kathy Jackson class before, or maybe if you are you've been through a Mag 40 or something, and you're wondering if you'll get something out of this, yeah, go ahead and sign up. You will get something out of this. It's not just a beginner's course. Also, for people that took that class 2 years ago up in Sioux Falls, if you get a hold of Susan at politicsandguns.com, you sign up for the course this time, and this is a qualifier, if you bring somebody with you, you get 25% off your course. So anybody who's interested in that course, though, email Susan at politicsandguns.com. Gary, you got a training special you wanted to talk about, right?
I do, yeah. I did this as a private class. I had some people contacted me, and they wanted to save their weekends. And a lot of the Illinois concealed carry classes are Saturday, Sunday, because it's 16 hours required. So it takes up everybody's all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Well, I did it, like I said, as a private class, so now I'm doing it as a public class. The next 2 Thursdays and Fridays, May 28th, 29th, and June 4th and 5th, which is a Thursday, Friday, we're going to do 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So we're still getting the 16 hours in. People can come after work and still have their weekends to themselves. Class is $250. Anybody who emails me directly, Gary at firearmsafetyinstitute.com, and mention the Polite Society podcast. Normally I give 10% off for listeners. I'm going 20% off for this class. So contact me directly and get your Illinois concealed carry permit.
That's enough of a discount. They could take you out to dinner.
Absolutely.
All right. And then one last thing, and we really are going to go out to break. I am, and this will probably be the first and last time you hear about this until it absolutely is locked down. I'm working on getting a Mag 40 in Sioux Falls next year. And it looks like what's going to happen is it's going to be divided over, usually that's a 4 days in a row class. It looks like we're going to be dividing it into 2 different weekends, 1 weekend shooting, 1 weekend classroom. I don't have anywhere for you to sign up yet, and it's not 100% that this is going to happen. It's just kind of leaning that way. But
that's super cool, Paul.
Yeah, we'll keep your eyes and ears open for that. And I'm sorry to leave this segment on a downer, but we had in Omaha this week an officer, a young lady, brand new mother.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, she was the next day she was going to be taking her maternal leave. She lost her life, and the humans, I can't even say people. The Homo sapiens that belong to the Westboro Baptist Church are planning a picket of that funeral. We did this once before, folks. If we did this with a person down in Memphis when a young soldier lost his life, was going to be buried. I don't care who you are. If you can get to Omaha on May 26th, that's day after tomorrow, that's Tuesday, and you can somehow make a human shield so that this family isn't impacted by these terrible excuses for human beings, please do that. I don't know whether I can make it or not. I'm going to see if I can, but please, folks, if you can get down there and lend a hand to this family, I personally would appreciate it. So we're going to step aside to break, and when we come back, believe it or not, over the last 2 weeks, there's been some news. So we'll get to that news right after this. Holy cow, 46-minute open.
We'd been away for a while.
Yeah. Well, I think I took 20 minutes of that myself. So.
Yeah, Barb and I went to this thing called the White Squirrel Festival down in Brevard. It's a little town, and they have some mutant squirrels that are white, and it's kind of like the symbol of the town. There was a bunch that were kind of Westboro Baptist Church preaching against homosexuality out in the middle of the street, middle of the festival, and you're like, what gives? And so, yeah.
Well, I didn't want to jump in the middle of what you're saying, Paul, but the fact is, you know, as much as it makes us sick, we have to allow it.
Right.
Oh, believe me, I want to allow it, but I have free speech rights as well.
I wasn't.
And what my free speech rights are going to be is standing in between them, and you know, I want anybody that can get there to stand in between them.
I hear that. It just, you know, this freedom is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. It's hard work, and you got to let this kind of things that turn your stomach happen.
Mm-hmm. And I can do, and I'm going to do everything in my power to mitigate the pain to the people. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
And why are they picketing this fallen cop's funeral? Just because they can and they'll get publicity?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
basically.
Yeah.
Hey, Susan,
Yes.
I hope you will say when you come back that we have a lot of news, and a lot of it's good news. We should go on vacation more often.
Yes. It's in the somewhere.
Okay,
In
good.
one of these. It's on one of these stories, but I can put it in when we come back. That's not a problem.
Okay, who wants to bring us back?
Right on.
Gary, you're elected. All right, and we are rolling.
Welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast. This is our news segment, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. We do have a ton of news, so let's get right into it. Susan, first story, please.
We do have a ton of news. We've been away for a while, and I'm thinking if we're going to have this much good news every time we're away, we should go on vacation more often.
There you go.
Amen.
A federal judge said Washington, D.C. is once again breaking the law. A year ago, D.C. was told its laws denying concealed carry were unconstitutional. Then the city passed permit regulations that were so restrictive, only one person in 4,000 would be granted a concealed carry permit. Judge Frederick J. Scullin, Jr. said that was probably illegal and issued an injunction against D.C.'s regulations. Quoting Judge Scullin, the District of Columbia's arbitrary good reason, proper reason requirement goes far beyond establishing reasonable restrictions. Rather, for all intents and purposes, this requirement makes it impossible for the overwhelming majority of law-abiding citizens to obtain licenses to carry handguns in public for self-defense, thereby depriving them of their Second Amendment right to bear arms. End quote. It's unusual for a judge to issue a preliminary injunction. The case isn't out of court yet, but it's a small step toward recognizing the right of self-defense for D.C. citizens and for visitors to D.C. It's not a huge impact for us. We haven't had a huge number of applicants. D.C. Police Chief Kathy Lanier said of the ruling during an interview Tuesday on News Talk. Our residents have been pretty clear that this is not something that they wanted. A very small number of D.C. residents have applied for concealed carry.
Now, I'm wondering if a very small portion of D.C. residents have applied because it's been made very clear you're not going to get approved.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, if you make the hurdle so high, people will sometimes will just give up.
Well, and one of the big problems New Jersey has is there are some places where when you apply for a permit, they'll say, have you ever been denied a permit? Well, you don't want to have to put yes to that question. So if they know the chances are slim or none that they'll actually get the permit, a lot of people won't apply simply because they want to keep that check mark off the
Right.
box that says I have been denied a permit.
Right. And I think we see a lot of that going on in Illinois. They expected 300,000. We got less than 100,000 in the first year. And it's because they have made it such an incredible maze of tricks and hurdles that you have to figure out. Even getting the permit, it's a ton of hours and a ton of money. But aside from that, the laws are brand new, so they're evolving. They change. Things happen. I get messages all the time about this changed, that changed, and locations. And Paul's talked about doing the Second Amendment dance, arming and disarming. That's a pain. So, I mean, yes, it's not that people don't want the right to defend themselves. It's that we've made it ridiculous, so they're not doing it.
Gary, that's exactly right. People in every state are the same. Human nature is the same. We have the same desires. If there's a difference in the number of people getting licenses, it's because Illinois and D.C. have made it so prohibitive.
Besides hearing cases for the District of Columbia, Judge Scullin hears cases for the Northern District of New York. Before he became a lawyer and a judge, Judge Scullin served active duty with the United States Army as a paratrooper, airborne ranger, and as an infantry commander with the 173rd Airborne Brigade in the Republic of Vietnam. What do you think Judge Scullin might do to the New York SAFE Act and the concealed carry laws in New York City?
I think it's going to be very likely he does what he just did to DC.
Yeah, I think it was a good ruling. I questioned in that first story. He said, it's probably illegal. That seems rather vague for a judge's ruling.
Well, he hasn't ruled on it yet. It's a preliminary injunction saying the citizens who tried to get a permit and complained that they were denied, it's likely that they will succeed in their case.
For
Very
a permanent
likely.
injunction.
Right. But he hasn't ruled on it yet.
Oh, okay.
This is just the warm-up rounds of this adventure.
Yeah, it's going to be a warm-up rounds, all right. That's if it goes that way, if he continues to rule in the way that he probably thinks it will, it could really impact New York and New Jersey.
Yep.
We have another court case to talk about. The U.S. Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, said someone convicted of a crime may sell their guns to a third party so long as the accused never takes possession or control of the firearms. The case started when a Border Patrol agent was convicted of smuggling drugs. The FBI seized the agent's guns and then refused to sell them to a third party. The court said the FBI acted illegally and that they must release the firearms for sale or transfer. I guess some parts of the government have to obey the law after all.
You know, it would have been what they consider a taking if the Supreme Court allowed the FBI, oh, you've been convicted of a felony, you've lost the property rights. From what I understand, the government's argument was really weak.
Yeah.
We received news that the United Parcel Service recently changed its policies. UPS will no longer ship silencers, even to FFL licensees. This always struck me as bizarre. The U.S. outlaws the same mufflers that are required for hunting in other countries. We restrict mufflers that are sold over the counter in Europe. Until our government comes to its senses, check how you ship your silencers.
Well, the one real easy cure to that is go FedEx.
I'm just worried that this is another way the federal government can impose backdoor registration. What if they say, oh, no, you could only send it by bonded courier because that's a federal firearms license. John, what's the proper term? Short-barreled shotguns, mufflers, they're...
NFA items.
NFA, right. I just hope we don't see another executive order here.
As a person who actually has tinnitus and some hearing loss, it really irritates me that both for myself and for anybody else, firearm, silencers, suppressors, they should be over-the-counter items. And probably the reason that they were made NFA items was not even Hollywood, it was to stop poaching. And now you have many states allow hunting with silencers. And they don't cut all 100% of noise. They reduce it 20 to 30 decibels.
Right.
Well, and honestly, I mean, if we're talking handgun, the big thing I hear about it is it's an assassin's weapon. Well, two arguments to that. Number one, yeah, it doesn't silence the gun. It lessens the noise, but it doesn't silence it. Secondly, is you're talking about any firearm you put that on, it's going to be a lot harder to conceal with a silencer on the thing than it is going to be as your standard Glock 19, Glock 23, or anything that you're going to have an additional at least 2 to 3 inches on the end of the barrel. So
double that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the thing is, if I wanted to break the law and I wanted to shoot a .22 rifle and I want to make it silenced, I don't have to buy a silencer. I just use an empty 2-liter Coke bottle and some duct tape.
There's
It
YouTube.
worked for the Chechens.
Yeah. And there's YouTube videos of how to manufacture very effective and semi, I want to say it's going to last a lot longer than a 2-liter bottle. But there's very effective videos on how to make illegal silencers.
Not that we're advocating people do illegal things.
No,
Absolutely not.
But I mean, I've watched these things, and folks, it's not rocket science. A trip to your local hardware store and 20 minutes, and it's done.
Yeah.
And that's with somebody with very limited tools. You need a crescent wrench, and everything else you can buy.
Oh, yeah, crescent roll with some butter on it. Oh. I have to slightly, I guess, I don't know, disagree with what I think John said. I do believe that it is TV, because in movies, I think people who don't have a clue, typical politicians, anti-gun people, think that if everybody could buy silencers, then us crazy gun owners could just sneak up on people and kill them whenever we wanted to, and it wouldn't make a sound, and no one would know what was happening, and all kinds of stupid stuff. Family show like that.
Especially if we put silencers on our revolvers.
Oh.
Yeah.
Save me.
Yeah.
All right.
I think it's stupidity. Once again, those laws were created out of sheer ignorance.
We've seen some state legislatures pass new firearms restrictions. That's why we have to ask if background checks work at all. Last week was National Law Enforcement Week. Of all the officers shot and killed last year, half of them were shot by felons who were prohibited from having a firearm. The criminals used stolen guns, so the thugs never went through a background check. Criminals simply don't obey the law. If background checks don't stop criminals, then who is inconvenienced and perhaps deterred from buying a firearm? Gun laws only inconvenience honest gun owners. Is that failure a flaw in the law, or is it a feature that was designed in from the start?
Well, I can hear it now. Some fool somewhere is saying that we should pass a law that would require criminals to obey the law.
Yeah. Let's just, yeah. Why don't we just make murder and robbery and rape and burglary and home invasion, just make all that illegal?
I don't vote for that, Paul. There ought to be a law.
Well, once again, this just stems from complete ignorance. Someone explain to me why we need 14 laws that say you can't kill somebody with a gun, you can't kill somebody with a knife, you can't kill somebody with... What is the deal? Are we just trying to ink and paper as we can? Seriously, what's the deal? I don't get it.
You're going to hear it coming up in the interview we did. We actually recorded it last night with Rachel Malone. But Texas, folks, Texas gets it right. Their legislature meets once every 2 years. And
for like, what is it, 45 days?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And they don't have the opportunity to make as many laws. I really, really wish we could put that same restriction on Congress and every state legislature.
Amen.
We've got, honestly, if I could put on my hat and find a Mike Bloomberg to back my candidacy, I would run for president under the platform of I'm going to get rid of 90% of the laws that are on the books.
Right. Evan Nappen just wrote about that, by the way. It was a little Facebook post he did.
Oh, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have another story about a proposed gun law that won't work. New Jersey Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman is 70 years old. She's a Democrat and was elected last year. She introduced a bill in Congress to restrict the sale of ammunition online. The bill requires you to buy ammunition from federally licensed ammunition dealers. It requires these dealers to confirm the identity of their customers with a photo identification. It also requires the dealers to tell the U.S. Attorney General if anyone purchases more than 1,000 rounds within 5 consecutive days.
I would be on that list.
I think all of us would. And
Yeah.
I typically order large lots of ammunition to reduce shipping costs.
Right.
So am I now Terrorist of the Month Club?
Yeah.
This bill will do nothing to stop crime or terrorism. A terrorist can simply buy 100 rounds a day for days on end, or buy from several different distributors. In addition, our borders are wide open, and millions of people and millions of pounds of drugs cross the border each year. Smuggling ammunition to criminals would never be noticed. Congresswoman Coleman's bill has not a chance of passage, but it will earn her campaign dollars from Bloomberg.
I think that's where this was aimed to start with, is getting some anti-gun dollars. I don't think when it was introduced she ever thought it could have a chance.
Well, years ago, up through probably mid-'80s, if you wanted to buy ammunition, you had to show your driver's license and you had to sign a register, and it was federal law. And no less an anti-gun politician than Ted Kennedy supported repeal of that portion of the Gun Control Act of '68. Because it didn't work, it was intrusive, and it was a joke.
Yeah.
I leave it at that.
Paul, to go inside politics for a minute, I think you're right. Part of the reason for this bill is Bloomberg dollars. I just worry that it could be more than that. Our president has said Congress hasn't acted on important legislation, so I'll impose it by executive order. Hope we don't see that here.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. I don't think there's a heck of a lot of chance of that. And even if it does, even if we get an executive order that says, this is what's going to happen, I know of a group in Washington that would be in court in about 3.5 seconds. And B, should it ever get through, I honestly believe that we're going to have a president that come January of 2017 will rescind that order post haste.
I hope.
Yeah, and then more reason for us to work. More reason for us to work for this coming election next year. We do need to run a break. Before we do, John, you pointed out we've got some audio to run from Grassroots North Carolina. You pointed this out to me. You want to tell folks what brought this to your attention? Right.
Here in North Carolina, we are trying to get rid of the pistol purchase permit system. And while we're trying to get rid of it, Michael Bloomberg, Everytown Moms, Gabby Giffords, the Brady campaign, they're all, and the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, are all campaigning to keep it. And if you don't have a concealed carry permit, you have to pay $5 to get a pistol permit. Some counties, you walk in, you pay your $5 or your $20 and you get 4, and you walk out. Some counties some sheriffs have added extraneous requirements. You wait 2 to 3 weeks to get the permit. There is no set system. The genesis of the law was in 1919. It was in the white segregation Democrat-controlled General Assembly who wanted to keep blacks from having guns or concealable guns. And it also included blackjacks, daggers, dirks, Bowie knives, you name it. You had to have a permit.
Hmm. Well, it's
And Bloomberg is now going to is dumping money in North Carolina to have a media campaign to keep the law with spurious statistics. And it's starting, and the Republicans in the North Carolina General Assembly hold a supermajority in both the House and the Senate.
yes.
And it's time for them to get off the stick and pass it. But this audio is Grassroots North Carolina is doing a radio campaign against Bloomberg, and they're using North Carolina moms who say it's time to get rid of the pistol permit system.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and run that, and we'll be back right after this.
My name is Stephanie, and I'm a North Carolina mother of two. Using a front group calling itself Moms Demand Action, billionaire Michael Bloomberg is spending a fortune on TV ads in our state to attack House Bill 562, claiming it will abolish background checks on gun purchases. That's not true. Under a leftover Jim Crow law, originally designed to keep minorities from buying guns, sheriffs now issue purchase permits good for up to 5 years, meaning someone could get a permit, then commit a crime, and then use that permit to bypass a computerized background check. Under House Bill 562, background checks would be done at the time of sale, not 5 years beforehand. Does that sound like abolishing anything to you? Call your state legislators and tell them House Bill 562 is good for gun owners and bad for criminals. I'm a North Carolina mom, and Michael Bloomberg doesn't speak for me.
Paid for by Grassroots North Carolina. For details, check grnc.org. That's grnc.org.
Okay, and we're clear. All right.
Bathroom break?
Yeah, let's do it. You too?
You take forever to get back.
Deal.
Everybody gets up and runs.
Somebody goes to the YouTube channel late. What the hell? Okay. Everybody back? Nope. John's not back yet.
I had the show all to myself for about a minute there. Boy, was that filthy.
You were filthy?
Yes.
Really?
Where's the helmet?
Uh-huh. I am Helmut, and I am Wilhelm.
Okay. Rob, you want to bring us in for this segment?
You ready?
Enrolling now.
Welcome back to our second news segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Susan, what's our next story?
Some of Bloomberg's other useful idiots have reintroduced the Gun Show Loophole Closing Act. This old bill once again claims to close the non-existent gun show loophole by requiring background checks on all gun purchases. However, this bill hides a devious little twist. It requires the transfer to be reported to the U.S. Attorney General. That's the office once controlled by Eric Holder, now under Loretta Lynch, that has become one of the most politicized and lawless of the federal government. This bill, like the Jersey Democrats' bill to create a database of ammunition purchasers, is part of the push by anti-gun Democrats to identify the armed citizen. The reasons behind their efforts must be chilling for those that still believe in the Bill of Rights. Please contact your representative and urge a no vote on this insanity.
You know, I'm kind of ashamed to say that the representative who introduced this, Carolyn Malone, is not only a North Carolina native, but a native of Greensboro, the town in which I grew up. Then she moved to New York and all since left her head.
Now, which happened first? The move or becoming an idiot?
I hope it was the move.
I don't know. There could be a lot of stupid hanging around. And watch your step, man.
I mean, aside from the utter stupidity of the concept, do you guys, can anybody imagine the cost added to the Attorney General's office to keep this? How many more people? I mean, this goes beyond guns. How many millions and millions and millions of dollars are we going to waste to keep a list of the people that are already honest, law-abiding citizens? And
well, right.
Nothing to stop the criminals.
Well, I think we just have to look at Canada, and it's not millions, but billions.
Yeah.
And it never was used by the RCMP to solve one crime.
It was billions in a country whose population was a tenth of the United States population. So
Yeah.
I could extrapolate with the United States, it would not cost billions, but tens of billions.
This isn't an anti-crime bill. It's an anti-honest firearms owner bill.
Mm-hmm.
So who cares what it costs? It's taxpayer monies, not politicians.
Well, going back a couple years to the Operation Fast and Furious hearings, Carolyn Malone was involved in those as a member of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and basically she ran interference for Eric Holder just as much as Elijah Cummings.
Yep.
Which is saying a lot.
Well, I gotta get, this just cranks me up so much. This is a blood pressure pill moment. We can't even get it. We've got a senator trying to let the Patriot Act die, and then we have another Republican candidate for president saying he's wrong, and then we have the media saying it's okay to spy on Americans if we happen to catch a spy. This is not. What country is this? They want to register me and keep track of me. I'm an honest citizen.
Yes, but do you have an internal passport?
The country is called Night of the Walking Dead Voters.
I know, and that's the thing. What if it keeps us safer? Then let them just march soldiers through my house and search it whenever they want. If it keeps us safer, if you tell me it keeps us safer, even though it doesn't, let's keep a list of everybody who owns guns, because one out of who knows how many hundreds of thousands or millions of gun owners are a problem. Let's let them keep a list. Let's spend more money on this crap. I'm done.
Good job, Gary.
I got mine right here. You got yours, Gary?
Totally.
Mine comes in a bottle.
Our friend Jeff Knox pointed out that the impossible has happened. The media tells us that gun owners are both dangerous and impotent. We're called dangerous gun nuts who could kill hundreds of people. We're also told that a citizen with a discreetly carried handgun is powerless to stop a violent criminal or terrorist. Jeff points out where the impossible happens time and time again. It's happened in Garland, Chicago, the New Life Church in Colorado, and at dozens of other examples of firearms used for self-defense. It is possible to stop violent criminals, stop terrorists, and stop deranged individuals bent on hurting innocent people. That is to meet the attacker with deadly force. While a handgun is not the best option in a pitched gun battle, there's an old saying that the best gun in a gunfight is the one you have, because the gun you don't have is not going to do you any good. Jeff's article is up at WorldNet Daily. The link's in our show notes.
Jeff does a great job. I've met him in person, and he's been on our show a number of times. We need to get him back on. But, go check his article out.
As we in North Carolina say, Jeff was raised right. That's because his dad was Neil Knox,
Yep.
who was the original head of the NRA-ILA and one of the architects behind the Cincinnati Revolution.
Yeah. Once again, the article says hundreds of times firearms are used to stop criminals. And you know what? That's because we have to tone it down. It's thousands. But we can't, if it turns out that it's 999 on one day and not thousands, then everyone's going to go see what liars they are. It's thousands and thousands and thousands. It's hundreds of thousands a year. And, I mean, Jeff points out some very specific that got a slightly more media coverage than incidents, but there's so many of them because shots aren't fired. It doesn't get everybody excited in the media and sell more advertising. They don't make it to any media, but it's thousands of times a day, and I just get sick and tired of people saying it never happens, it doesn't happen, it's impossible for it to happen. It's ridiculous.
Gary, one of the reasons I'm on this podcast is one of my neighbors literally claimed that at a Christmas party one year, and I started digging and didn't stop till I got what I thought was the truth and went, holy cow, this is fascinating. So one man's ignorance led me to a podcast.
Wow, that's pretty cool. But you know, there's so many studies that range from 750,000 to over 3 million times a year.
Yeah.
And we quote the low numbers. We quote the numbers from the FBI statistics. You know, everybody. The Kleck and Lott are quacks. Their studies are ridiculous. People say that stuff, and we know they're not. We've met these people. They're intelligent human beings that do very valid, reviewed studies. But you know, as soon as somebody starts going, it's a lie, and then it gets repeated in the press, everybody goes, well, maybe. But all you have to do is look at the FBI studies.
Right.
You know, they're certainly not going to lean towards our side, and even those say hundreds of thousands. So I don't know who these people are who think that it never happens.
Some of the media understands firearms. Author Katie Pavlik writes at Town Hall. Katie reports on a very liberal Texas woman who bought a gun. The Texas lady made her choice to own a gun because of two factors: personal security and fun. The liberal Texan had 5 burglaries at her home. The break-ins cost more than money. They stole her peace of mind. To quote her, I would wake up each time a squirrel ran the perimeter of my backyard fence, convinced someone was coming for me. My dreams were all of victimization or revenge. Close quote. Then she bought a gun, and everything changed. First, she was shamed by her fellow liberals when they found out she was a gun owner. Second, she also felt safe living in her home again. The gun resting on her nightstand became her sleep aid. We could have told her that, but I'm glad she learned before she was injured.
Absolutely. This is the power for every one of us to take someone shooting. Their own experience will push away the myths that they keep hearing.
You know, her tolerant liberal friends suddenly wouldn't tolerate her if she owned a gun. Anybody else see a problem with that?
Oh yeah.
And I want to bring up, Rob, you brought up a great point. I've got a lot of friends that don't own guns. There's a lot of family. Matter of fact, outside my immediate family, Susan and I and our kids, I don't know that anybody is a gun owner.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know,
My aunt and uncle that were just down a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're pro-choice.
Yeah, and we don't, we don't harp on the non-gun owners to tell you got to get a gun. It's a personal decision, but and we don't, my friends and family that are not gun owners, I don't talk to them any less than I do my friends that are gun owners. So it's a good analogy. Which side is tolerant?
Right. And Rob brings up a great point about being pro-choice. It's not arming the whole 300 million people in this country. That's not what it's about. It's the fact that someone has the ability to, and there's the likelihood that they might be armed. That's what the criminals don't like. Why are they running wild in Chicago? Because nobody's armed. They know there's nobody armed. I tell everybody I don't carry a gun. I don't carry a gun because I'm really worried about me. I'm a big fella. People are less likely to attack me. I'm situationally aware. I don't have my face buried in my phone when I'm walking down the street. All those type of things. I am armed because I want to have that conversation with everybody. And the fact that there is now 100,000, almost 100,000 concealed carry permits in Illinois, that's got every criminal thinking twice. And when we get to 200,000 and 300,000, they'll be thinking again because they don't know who they're going to come up on. Like I said, when Chicago was 100% disarmed, who cares? Nobody else has got a gun but me, but the criminal. So,
A Brooklyn McDonald's was the scene of an attack that is unfortunately becoming too common. A pack of youths turned on a man trying to break up a fight between 2 girls. To shouts of "kill him," 20 to 40 school-aged teenagers beat and kicked the man, putting him into the hospital with life-threatening injuries. Several McDonald's employees and another man were also assaulted. The attack was recorded by a boy shouting, "Kill him right now!" and laughing. He posted the scene on Facebook, where it went viral. No arrests have been made. Community activists are, of course, appalled as required by their trade. A Brooklyn mother said she's disgusted and scared for her children. To see something like that is scary. It is scary, especially to someone who may be faced with a pack of these feral youths. Be aware, plan ahead, and avoid places where these types of kids congregate.
I don't know if it's I don't know if we're going to mention it later in the show notes or not. Honestly, I helped write some of them, but I haven't read everything that's in here. But I don't. One thing that happened last week Certainly it's happened after the last time we recorded was this incident down in Waco, where there was a whole bunch of bikers got shot. There's some debate on whether they were shot by each other or by police, and until the facts are in, I'm not going to comment a whole lot more about that situation, other than when we were at dinner, Bob and Ben and I were talking about that, and where it relates to this is the same thing. If I were to see if Susan and I were out having dinner somewhere, and I were to see a whole bunch of people with motorcycle clothes come in, and I happen to look, and some of them weren't wearing patches. Okay. Some were wearing patches for one club. Okay. Some other people were wearing patches from another club, and they sat in a way far away place. Now it's time for me to get the hell out of there.
And if you add to that, you see a bunch of cops standing around outside.
Yeah, there were 0 people, not motorcycle riders. There were 0 people. Let's say call them innocent bystanders, injured. Well, I can tell you for sure there were none killed, but the police are saying there were no innocent bystanders injured either. The phrase that came up, and I don't know who brought it up, but you go back to the old Western movies. The smartest people in those old Western movies, when it became apparent there was going to be a shootout, were the bystanders, because the windows closed and the bystanders boogied, and there was only 2 people around. Folks, if it looks like there's going to be any kind of a fight around you, boogie. Get the heck out of there.
Here's some good news from Oklahoma. The legislature recently passed a law allowing trained school staff to carry on campus. The bill's sponsor was Representative Jeff Coody. He said, quote, "The thinking has always been that if we eliminate guns, it makes it a safer place. The only problem is you cannot eliminate those people who are not willing to comply with the law. A gun-free zone is a target, a soft target," end quote. Representative Coody's bill was supported by the professional Oklahoma educators. These educators said the bill, quote, "gives options to school districts to protect their students. We cannot play games anymore. These are the lives of our children," close quote. The bill passed in the Oklahoma Senate by a vote of 40-5, and it passed the House by a vote of 82-12.
It's good news, but what's even better news is the reason they passed the bill. I mean, they stated it right up front.
Yeah, and Oklahoma, this just a great. Back to when Rachel a few months ago said that she was bold, asking Texas to go boldly where 40 other states had gone before, talking about open carry. Well, it looks like now Oklahoma is catching up with Arkansas, Colorado, Idaho, Kansas, Mississippi, Oregon, Utah, Wisconsin, and my own state of South Dakota. I see it over the next several years doing the same thing. Pretty soon it's going to be California, New Jersey, maybe Illinois, maybe Maryland, where you can't carry in school, but a lot of states are going to open it up to their schools.
I don't think California and Illinois will be at the front of that list. I think, as usual, our geniuses in Illinois will be on the tail end of that, and they'll go, "Oh, hey, look, it's worked in 49 other states. Let's get on board."
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, I don't think New Jersey, California, they're not going to be leading the charge.
No,
for the next states, but.
We maintain hope that you'll eventually get there.
Yeah.
Please, don't give up, honey. Don't give up. I'm trying.
If you look at his statement, he said the thinking has always been that if we eliminate guns, it makes it a safer place. Our previous story about the McDonald's shows that you can have danger and no guns involved.
Yes.
Mob violence is just as deadly.
Yes, in that story, remember, life threatening injuries, and there were no guns involved. I'm not even certain whether there were knives involved. They just beat the guy.
Yeah, they got him on the ground and started kicking him a lot.
Yeah.
And it's what you call disparity of force.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. I don't have the details. I do recall an article a while back about Utah allowing campus carry and not having any school shootings. Do you guys remember the details on that?
Mhm.
Anything?
No, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm sure those are very similar in most of the other states, but I remember Utah specifically being pointed out.
There's more good news from Minnesota. Minnesota Governor Mark Dayton signed several pro-rights bills into law. At first, the governor threatened not to sign these bills. At first, the governor threatened not to sign these bills. These bills had bipartisan support, and the governor signed them. Minnesota now recognizes concealed carry permits from several other states. It now has reciprocity with 15 other states, up from only 4 states. That includes North Dakota citizens with a Class 1 permit. They legalized firearm mufflers, so gun owners can both own mufflers and use them for hunting or sport shooting. They allow carry permit holders to bring handguns into the state capital area without requesting permission in advance. In this case, the capital included a 10-block by 10-block area, but not anymore.
That's a 10-block by 10-block area in the center of St. Paul.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Lots of museums, other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
These new laws restricted the government's ability to seize firearms from the public after a state of emergency is declared. This limits the ability of the police to seize firearms unless the person is arrested, and an arrest requires probable cause. They allowed the purchase of long guns from any state. Congratulations to Minnesota gun owners and the Minnesota Gun Owners Civil Rights Alliance. Well done.
Yeah, good news from Minnesota. I wish they would have increased reciprocity a little bit more, but when I get my Utah permit in July, I'll be there'll be, well, in my local area, 4 less states that I have to do the disarmament dance in.
I was speaking to Andrew Rothman, and the problem is the state attorney general.
Yeah.
He applies the most restrictive language possible, even if there's no legal justification for it. For example, the reciprocity language said that states had to be substantially similar. Substantially means a number of the factors agree, whereas similar would require that all the factors of the 2 permitting systems agree. The AG looked at it and said, oh, substantially means that they have to agree, the other state has to exceed our permit requirements. That was never the intent. The legislative language is pretty clear. The legal interpretation of the word substantially is also pretty clear. What the legislature did is came back and removed the word substantially.
Okay, very cool. We're going to go ahead and step aside. We're going to have one more break here in the news segment. We got a little bit more. Hey, come on, folks. We had 2 weeks of news to catch up on, so we'll finish catching up on news right after this. Yeah, I wasn't even looking at the clock that close. That was 23 minutes. This will be a short one.
Sorry, I'm a little fired up today. I don't know what happened to me there.
No, why? That's why we keep you around for that. Throw another piece of red meat in his cage, will you?
Yeah, that's why you're still on the show, man. All right, John, I think it's your turn to bring us back. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, rolling.
Hi, and welcome back to the Polite Society Podcast news segment, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. Susan, what's next up on the list?
A law similar to the one passed in Minnesota was passed last week in Florida. Florida Governor Rick Scott signed a bill allowing Florida residents to carry concealed firearms without a permit during an emergency evacuation. This permitless carry lasts for 48 hours and may be extended per the governor.
Let's hope that they continue to have decent governors there, because let's face it, if what was her name? She was Attorney General under Clinton.
Janet Reno.
Janet
Reno, right?
He's a Florida resident and has in the past made noises about running for governor. Do you think Janet Reno would ever invoke that law? You know, let's hope they continue getting decent governors down there on the gun rights issue.
Yeah,
on the other hand,
still don't have open carry in Florida.
Yeah, that's
unless you're going fishing.
Right, or hunting. But this is a great reason to get your Florida permit.
Yeah. And this brings to mind squirrel. Have you guys seen that video? It's been out for a long time. It may have been out. I know it's been out a year at least. But Masada Ayub was hunting hogs in a helicopter, and the helicopter.
The helicopter crashed. I remember that.
And there's a video of that.
No, I didn't see it.
Oh wow, that's talk about stomach in your throat. I got scared watching the thing.
Laws matter. Chicago politicians created gun-free zones. Chicago politicians created drug prohibition. Chicago politicians crushed industry with high taxes and regulations. That is a well-known recipe for disaster. 49 people were shot last weekend in Chicago. I'm sorry.
Gary, I'm glad you live far enough outside that. I wish they would clean it up. It's not like we don't know how.
No, it's not. And for some reason, and once again, I don't understand, people are not, just citizens are not stupid people. Why do we just give them an open checkbook to crush us? I don't. Why? Why do we allow it to happen? It's our choice. It's absolutely our choice. I wish I could do more. I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, and it's not enough of us.
Okay.
We have two more judicial rulings to report. The first said that legal open carry is not probable cause for a police officer to make an arrest. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that open carry is not justification for an officer to stop, arrest, identify, and question an individual. The judge went farther. He said that an officer's qualified immunity did not extend to detaining an individual who was lawfully open carrying a firearm. That means officers can be sued, and they are personally liable for court costs and damages. That decision, if it stands, would put some teeth into the law protecting firearm owners.
Well, given that it came from a Circuit Court of Appeals, it would take a lot to get that ruling granted, somebody to appeal it to the Supreme Court. So
at least in the Sixth.
At least in the Sixth.
Yeah, it's standing law in the Sixth, which is great.
And the significant portion of this is that the officer's qualified immunity did not extend to these circumstances.
Yep.
You can sue the individual officer, and that their immunity does not apply. So the taxpayers wouldn't be on the hook. The officer would be on the hook. That's significant.
Listener Anthony Lacafo emailed us the link for this story. A fifth grader is in a bit of trouble in his New Jersey public school. It seems that he brought some ammunition to school. Ammunition for a Nerf gun. While pulling a late slip out of his pocket, a foam projectile designed to be fired from a Nerf gun fell to the floor in front of a teacher. This violated the school's zero-tolerance policy for weapons. However, as the late Billy Mays would say, "But wait, there's more." Our young Nerf gunslinger had modified the ammunition. our young Nerf marksman, had stuck a toothpick into the round so that it would stick when he fired the round towards the ground. That made the Nerf ammo now a self-contained weapon by the school's definition. Of course, the school immediately moved to expel the obviously dangerous young man, but eventually decided that a 5-day in-school suspension would suffice, along with a mark on the student's permanent record.
These zero tolerance policies, to me, zero tolerance means zero intelligence. It is the single most lazy way to administrate any group of people. To heck with a case-by-case basis. To heck with actually using your brain. All you got to do now is say, yeah, that can almost fit in our thing here. We're going to call it zero tolerance, and poof, we ruined your life.
You know, teachers now want to be called educators, and administrators came from the teaching ranks. So you would think that educator also would imply that the person was educated, but sometimes I wonder about that.
Well, they are, yeah, they're technically they are educated, but I know people who have advanced degrees that are total morons. I mean, they've got the piece of paper hanging on the wall, but when it comes to common sense, they've got absolutely none. And I'm not going to name them because I know them personally, and I think they might listen every once in a while.
To me, what's telling, I just hear crazy stuff coming out of a government official's mouth, and I go, and you guys want me to trust you to walk a dog, let alone educate a child? I mean, they are the world's best advertisers for homeschool.
Yeah, listeners, I don't think this is going to be on our interview that we did for my show, but Ben Branham, when we recorded with him, and I've already listened to it on his show, his wife is a teacher in the public school system in Texas. They have talked, and it's not if they're going to pull their student out of public school and put him into private school. It's when. That said something to me.
Let's end the news on a positive note. A New Jersey appellate court ruled that cities in New Jersey may not require added forms from firearm applicants beyond the forms that the state requires. This is the third such decision from the New Jersey appellate court. I hope we can now prosecute government officials who unlawfully harass New Jersey firearm applicants with additional paperwork.
Now, Frank Fiamingo was one of the very first guests, and certainly the first regular guest that I had on the show when I very first started the show. And Frank has been fighting for this for the 3 years he and I have known each other. And he and I had a brief text message conversation recently, and it is so good that this has finally come about where it looks like this time it really is, you can only put through what the state requires, nothing else, period. Stop it now.
Yep. Well, and as we've pointed out time and again, when a abusive government official can be individually fined, then the abuses stop.
Mm-hmm.
Well, given the ruling from D.C., things may even get better for our buddy Frank in New Jersey and some other states.
Yeah.
So
let's hope.
Obviously, it'll take time. Let's hope that that rolls in the positive direction also.
Yeah. Yeah, that D.C. decision, and we're going back to that story. We're talking about an injunction, not a final decision. But should it go the way it looks like it's going to go, that's going to put New Jersey, New York, California, all the May issue states that are left, they're going to have to be shaking in their boots a bit. So who wants to handle our gun quote?
I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead.
One has not only a legal but a moral responsibility to obey just laws. Conversely, one has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws. This comes from Martin Luther King Jr. in his letter from Birmingham jail. Hang on, everybody. We'll be back with our interview segment, and we have interviews with Rachel Malone and John Pierce coming up.
Awesome. That was a short one. Only 10 minutes, 44 seconds. I almost said 10 hours. It gets to feel like that sometimes, don't it?
Better start catering these events, Paul.
I'm telling you. Well, the only caterer I trust, we'd lose our narrator.
Yes, that's true. Oh. All right. Suck it up.
All right. I guess it's my turn to bring us back. Here we go.
Are we just going into the Rachel how
DGUs.
much of this? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. How much, if any of this stuff from the Rachel thing was?
Nope.
Okay.
Ooh, the goose.
The goose. Yes, DGUs. All right, here we go. Hey, and welcome back to the DGU segment of the Polite Society podcast, powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition. 2 weeks has gone by. We've got several DGUs, including one that I love. Susan, what's our first one?
Honestly, that's one less guy I got to worry about bothering my mom when she's out grocery shopping. That's how an Atlanta resident summed up his use of a firearm to stop a robbery. He had pulled into the store's parking space when a scruffy 61-year-old man slipped into the passenger seat and announced the carjacking. The victim pulled his firearm and held the perp face down on the asphalt until the police arrived, all the while laying down a line of smack talk. Our favorite? So you woke up stupid this morning? When police arrived, you can see the victim wave them over and put his gun down. The police officer shakes his hand before slapping the cuffs on the suspect. This textbook and stylish DGU was recorded on several cell phones. It is the 21st century, after all. We add our commendations to this everyday hero. He's a good son.
You got to see the videos of this thing. The link is in the show notes. You got to see this video. The guy has, number one, he's had training. His finger is way off the trigger. He's got a good stance. He's paying attention not only to the guy on the ground, but everything else going on around him. He keeps good discipline with his firearm. And I just, the whole time, I've got this big grin on my face. I just love this DGU.
And again, because it never happens, this was barely trickled into mainstream media. So if you listeners, friends, if you have a chance, anytime someone tells you that there's nothing good that happens from carrying a gun, there's a great video to show them.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's entertaining. I mean, just go watch it just because it's entertaining, and it is. You know,
criminal stopped, no shots fired.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing, when the police showed up, the guy not only he didn't holster. As soon as the police were there and had control, he made sure the gun was pointed in a safe direction, and then he turned and he laid the gun on the ground right behind him, pointing away from everybody. And the officer walked up and shook his hand. Then he went and holstered the gun. Just wow, just yeah, great DGU. This guy is my hero.
Well, I don't think there's any video for this, but this one will make you smile too. A 49-year-old concealed carrier had finished his dialysis appointment at a doctor's office, excuse me, and was on his way to his car. A young man came out of the woods near the Clarkston, Michigan doctor's office carrying a revolver and demanded the concealed carrier's wallet. At this point, the concealed carrier drew his own gun and asked the 20-year-old Hispanic male, "Do you really want to do this?" The would-be armed robber told his intended victim to have a nice day, and then turned and ran back into the woods.
Anybody else want to comment? Because to me, that's scary stupid. Somebody points a gun at you and you decide to talk about it, you're facing lethal force. Your life can be open in a fraction of a second. And rather than respond with lethal force to defend yourself, you say, do you really want to do this? That's not how I was trained.
No, it isn't. Maybe if I was able to get the firearm up, have an absolute definite on sight. If I finish pulling the trigger, if I've got the slack taken up, and if I finish pulling the trigger, the gun's going to go off, and the other guy has still got the handgun down by his side, I might.
Gary, save us. How do you train people?
Yeah, no, this is, can you get a shot, take the shot, defend yourself. We're not, we talk about it all the time in movies. Bad guys always foil themselves because they keep jibber jabber. No talking. Yeah. No talking.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
Move, draw, stop the threat.
Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah, no blather. Yeah, you get him on the ground, and you're on video, and you want to.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, but this is not a joke. This is do something. You've been threatened. Your life has been threatened. End of story.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that one. Absolutely.
Oh, thanks.
A Pennsylvania woman was abducted and assaulted by her ex-boyfriend for over 20 hours. The woman escaped and ran outside at about 10 o'clock in the morning. Fortunately, neighbors heard the victim scream when she was attacked again in her backyard. Rather than simply be a good witness, one neighbor grabbed his handgun and stopped the attack. Neighbors moved the victim to the front yard to wait for an ambulance. The attacker was held at gunpoint until police arrived. The attacker was charged with criminal trespass, burglary, and attempted homicide. The gun owner said he would do the same thing again in a heartbeat with no second thoughts and no reservations. He has his concealed carry permit.
That's terrifying to imagine someone had been abused for, almost a day.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, good on the neighbor. Glad he was paying attention. Glad he was there and was paying attention and stopped the nightmare. Ended the nightmare. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Can't say he stopped it, but.
A man broke into a Memphis home at 2 in the morning. The family woke up when they heard breaking glass. The homeowner grabbed his gun. When he found the intruder standing inside his home, the homeowner shot the intruder in the head. The intruder was taken to the hospital in critical condition. Police have not filed any charges against the homeowner.
I mean, this is kind of like the counterpoint to the do you really want to do this? DGU that we had just a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
We've all heard the joke about criminals failing the victim selection process. Well, this is one of those stories. 2 men tried to carjack a doctor in Jackson, Mississippi. The doctor was getting ready to attend a shooting competition and was loading up his truck. The doctor was taken by surprise. He was ordered at gunpoint to drive to a nearby bank and withdraw some cash. The doctor complied, but was able to grab one of his handguns. He shot and killed one of the attackers. The other attacker fled on foot. The shooter had the presence of mind to neither pursue a fleeing criminal nor shoot him as he fled.
That's important. Right there. That's important. The guy's retreating. The guy's running away. The threat to you is done.
We actually had a case dealing with that in North Carolina. A guy shot, and I may have killed a guy in a car after he just robbed a store, after he had robbed the store and was escaping. Now, he faces either murder or voluntary manslaughter charges.
We had last week up here in Sioux Falls. There we had a break-in at a home,
Mhm.
and it was a young couple who were home with their baby, and the husband came downstairs and found this guy sitting at their kitchen table, and showed him his handgun, and the guy took off out the door. But there was a whole argument on Argus 911 on Facebook, and people were like, well, why didn't you just shoot him? And he's like, the guy left. I'm not going to shoot him as he's running away from me. That's not right. Well, you should have shot him when he was first in the...
Ah.
No.
There's got to be a threat.
Yeah. Though I will say, when I read this story, I thought of Rob. Getting ready to go shoot
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know
Well,
what? Go ahead, Rob.
What's interesting, I read about this story through a number of sources. The doctor gave them cash, and then they said, let's go back to your home. Maybe there are things we can take there. And he goes, I've got a wife and a daughter at home. Nope, this stops now.
Yeah, I think they mentioned the wife to the doctor, and it's being relatively new to this as far as the political end of it. 4 or 5 years, whatever it's been. I'm amazed at how many doctors there are between the work that Rob does, Jonna Dean, and stories like this. We've had more than one of doctors. There was the psychiatrist in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that there's more than I thought there would be. It's interesting.
I have been through 3 professional training classes, and in those 3 classes, I want to say there were a total of 50 people. 3 of them were MDs.
Right. The other thing is, just to cap that story, true people that have firearms for self-defense don't want to shoot anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to be shot. And if pointing, taking it out, whatever, is enough to keep you getting, that's enough. I honestly believe that the majority. There was, excuse me, there was the video of the guy's garage in a foreign country, but he had a camera in his garage. He pulled into the garage, and 3 guys forced his garage door back up. He was closing it and tried to come in. He saw him coming in the mirror and just started shooting as soon as they yanked the door open. And there was a bunch of comments underneath that. Ha ha, got him. And God, that makes me sick. But concealed carry people good people don't want to kill other people or hurt other people. They just don't want to be hurt. And when people get all cheery like that, when a criminal gets hurt, it does no good for our case, and it just does not make me happy.
Yep.
What can you say to a Redding, California woman who was forced to defend herself against a likely armed sex offender, freshly paroled from a weapons charge, wearing a GPS bracelet, probably high on an illegal substance, who had just escaped from deputies holding him at gunpoint? You can only shake your head at the awesome effectiveness of the California legal system. Parolee Dylan Carmelo escaped deputies by reaching into his clothing as if he were going for a gun and fleeing into the neighborhood's backyards. The deputy informed those nearby of the dangerous felon on the loose. Against the advice of California's elite, resident Jennifer Doolittle armed herself and went into the backyard to get her dogs inside. There, she was confronted by Carmelo, who popped over a fence and moved toward her, acting as if he were reaching for a weapon. Doolittle fired several times, striking Carmelo and stopping the attack. Carmelo continued to struggle until subdued by a sheriff's canine. It is not known at this time if the woman will be charged. A civil suit is almost a certainty. Several of the Polite Society staff can attest to California's collapsing catch-and-release legal system. It's why we urge every citizen to be armed, trained, and aware. It's also a big part of why California wants desperately to disarm its citizens.
We're going to go ahead and step aside to break here. We've got some more DGUs to talk about, and we'll be back to do those right after this. I really didn't have anything to add to that one, so we've got some YouTube comments. I should have been looking earlier, but we've got several. Let me go ahead and get through some of them. Mr. Fat says the bad thing about using Glock plastic sights, if you need to rack around with them on your body or your holster, they will break 99% of the time. That is why you need to get a metal sight. Good point, Mr. Fats.
Very good.
Yep.
That will put it back on my priority list, but I still think I'm getting more mags before I do.
By the way, since we're off air, I had the pleasure of going to dinner with Mr. Fats.
Yes, and his next comment was, Rob, it was good
whoops.
to have dinner with Jenny and you. That was his next comment.
Yep. It was Mother's Day.
Oh, very, very cool. MRX Man Rule says, don't watch the comments. Yeah, invite was sent out. I'll try and watch it later. Okay. And he also says, here to show support and give a like. Well, thank you to both of you. So those are our comments.
That's you know what, that's a great comment from Mr. Fats about the sights.
Mm-hmm.
Mine will be changed soon.
Yes.
Because my Glock is my backup gun, and that's a great point. I'm glad that I've got that information now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still will probably get a couple more mags first, but yeah, it's gonna be soon. Okay, DGU segment 2. I think we just got a couple of them here, so this ought to be a quick segment. You know what? Do we want to? Because we don't have any email, and we've already got a bunch of segments. Let's just fold these and the show close segment together.
Sure.
We'll just once we get done with the second one, I'll go ahead and go straight into the article that I wanted to bring up. So.
What if a trucker calls 911 and nobody shows?
Yeah, what if you call 911 and nobody shows? Everybody says, you don't need guns, you got 911. Well, here's a case where 911, 9 hours later, nobody showed. So, all right, I'm just going to bring us in on this one, too. Here we go. Coming back. Hey, welcome back. This is part 2 of our DGU segment, and honestly, we've got enough segments in the show already that we're going to go ahead and roll the blog posts and email and all that into this one, too. So, Susan, we've got a couple more DGUs. What's our first one?
A 77-year-old homeowner was in the shower recently when he heard some strange noises. He got out of the shower to see what was going on and came face to face with 2 burglars. Apparently, our good guy had a handgun close to him in the shower as he exchanged gunfire with the burglars, killing one, and the other was sent to the hospital, but the condition of the second bad guy wasn't known. One boy next door became concerned and called his father. The youngster told his dad that there were police everywhere and he had locked himself in the house. Another neighbor told reporters that she had recently been a victim of a burglary and had lost $80,000 in jewelry. The neighbor said of the homeowner who defended himself, I think he's 100% correct. They want to burglarize his house, and it's not the first time he was burglarized.
The reason, and I put this one in the show notes, the reason I wanted this one to be in there is, Gary and I, we often say it, pants on, gun on. However, I don't shower in my pants.
Right.
So I'm glad this guy, when he went to take a shower, the gun was close.
Yeah, you just never know when it's going to happen, and if he came out of the shower, criminals probably got to see 2 guns.
There you go.
Thanks, Gary.
Once again, we bring you a tale of the old people, showing that it's important to work together in a marriage as well as in a self-defense situation. A couple of retirees successfully fought off two armed attackers at their Thomaston, Georgia home. Only a month before, they had endured a home invasion where they were tied up and robbed at gunpoint. It seems that assault only made them mad and ready for the next attack. When the wife opened the garage door in the morning, the same two suspects ran at her from the nearby woods, waving handguns. The old gal drew her own gun, whistled a couple of rounds at the suspect. The old guy ran to the porch, added his own fire against the suddenly unenthusiastic robbers, who reversed course with all due haste. Kashif Muhammad, 20, and Daytrail Sappho, 21, were arrested exiting the woods. They are facing a slew of felony charges, including armed robbery and kidnapping. It's certain they all remember one critically important lesson: don't torque off the old guy and gal.
Yeah, and I just some of my U.S. PSA shooting friends are now using optics, some sort of red dot, and there's a lot of handguns now that are available with mounts for them. And I'm sure that I will get to that point where my eyesight has gotten so bad that typical blade notch sights are not enough. And I'm sure that day will come where I'll be mounting an optic on my self-defense firearm. And they've gotten so good and small now where they fit right in the holster. They stick up so they're not going to actually cause them to be more visible in a regular holster. I don't want to rely on them until I have to, because you're still talking about a battery and a mechanical electronic device that could fail on you. But they missed. Just something to think about when you get to that point.
So let me get this straight. You're reading through our last DGU, and because the old people missed their target, that led you to think about reflex sights. I like the way you think. That's really cool.
Well,
I want to mention, if I could, one thing they did really, really well. They separated themselves and presented fire from two different locations.
Mm-hmm.
And that, in the training, we trained this past weekend about what to do if there are two different groups of, if there are two people over here and one person over here that's attacking you. They gave us a scenario we worked on. But it's hair raising when you got two different groups of paper targets you're working with. I can only imagine if there are two different people throwing fire from two different locations. The good on them for thinking, even if it was just luck, tactically they did it right.
I think it was luck. It seems like she was leaving and he was still in the house and heard gunfire and was closest to the front door and came out that way. I don't know if it was a training thing. We do train that way, and it's definitely the way to think about it when you're with a partner or spouse. I think this one was more luck as opposed to a good planning.
But I like it when the good guys get lucky.
Sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'll take a good dose of luck anytime. I do want to remind everybody that we do post each of our news and DGU segments up at PoliteSocietyPodcast.com. Please take a moment to share them with a friend. We're getting into our email segment. We only got one email in, and that actually came in after we were writing show notes, and so it's not in the show notes. I'm sorry, everybody. But there was one person that wrote in and said, I got a show posted a while back, and then there was a show posted this morning, but they look like the same. Yeah, when I post up to our Libsyn, who is our distributor, they automatically release the show to YouTube and to all the podcasting software. However you may get the show, you get it through Libsyn, and it automatically posts to Facebook. Well, I've also got it set so when I update the website, it posts to Facebook, and usually those posts are within a minute or two of each other. Well, it was when we recorded on Mother's Day, I left out the next day. It was getting really late at night, and I didn't have time. I got the show out, but I didn't have time to update the website, and thought, no problem. I'm going to be off on Thursday, just getting ready for Bob and Ben. I'll find time then to do it. Yeah, that didn't work. Friday, I thought, Thursday I'm going through the stuff I'm going through, and I'm going to find time tomorrow before Bob and Ben land. I know I'll get it done, no big deal. And that didn't work. And once Bob and Ben landed, until I left, I was busy. And so I wasn't able to update the website until I got up at about 5 o'clock this morning and updated the website. So that's why if there was 2 updates for the same show that you found in your Facebook feed, that's why. That's the only email we got. I do want to bring up one different story, though. This is not guns, but it is guns. One argument we get all the time: you don't need a gun because you got 911. Well, I ran across a story through Landline Magazine. I read Landline Magazine because I'm a trucker, and even though I don't agree with about 60% of what Landline says, I still read their stuff because it deals with trucking, and that's the industry I'm involved in. They had a story linked in our show notes. A truck driver becomes involved in a sideswipe accident. It looks like the truck driver may actually have been the one at fault. Well, he gets his truck under control, rolls to a stop, and he stops about a mile down the road. He calls 911 immediately, reports the accident, and he complains of heart attack type symptoms while on the phone with 911. No one responded to his 911 call, and I mean nobody. No police, no medical, no nothing. 9 hours later, he is found by a driver that works for the same company when the company was sent to check on him. He died 11 minutes after being found, 9 hours after his 911 call. We're often told you've got 911, you don't need a gun. Where was 911 for this guy? His family is suing, and I hope they make a ton of money from the state of Louisiana, which is where this occurred, right on I-10.
I'm sorry he died, though. That's just...
And Gary mentioned this earlier also before we go off onto blog posts. I want to encourage our listeners to call their senators and demand they let the current version of the so-called Patriot Act to die. The current funding for Big Brother listening in on us is ending at the end of May this month. Now, Rhino Mitch McConnell is fighting hard for reauthorization. There has never been any evidence that I have ever seen that any of this debacle has helped to apprehend one single terrorist or even a jaywalker for that matter. It's time for it to go. I would urge everybody that can hear me, please dial on your cell phone. I don't know anybody that doesn't get free long distance anymore. 202-224-3121. That's the main switchboard for the U.S. Capitol. You don't have to know what district you're in. All you've got to know, you just say, I want to talk to my senators. And you don't have to know who they are. I know who mine are, but you don't have to. All you have to know is the state you live in, and they will connect you with one of your senators. Of course, they obviously can't do it that 2 at a time. If you can't figure out what state you live in, maybe the state of confusion, and go see your doctor. But please, folks, I joke around a little bit on the show, but this is important. The NSA needs to be reined in, and with the end of the Patriot Act, that will be a good start. Call your senators, get them on the ball. Mitch McConnell has delayed until a week from today the Senate taking any action on this. The funding ends on the 31st. They're going to meet on the 31st. That means you got 1 week. Get on the phone. Make your opinion heard. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Before we do move in, anybody else want to talk about either of those, or?
I'd like to see the Patriot Act go away.
Yeah.
I would like to second that.
Well, there have been a lot of conversations about how it has stopped terrorism.
Really?
Yes, there have. There have been conversations about it. I don't obviously, and once again, this is it's classified. I can't show you, but trust me, we've stopped terrorism. Those kind of things in the news.
I'm going to call Bravo Sierra on that.
All right. Well, we don't know. We don't know. The point is, it doesn't matter. This is America, not a police state. Just because it works doesn't mean they can go and search you. Fourth Amendment, folks.
Yeah.
Search you without a warrant. And I'm not talking about some general secret court warrant that says Verizon on it, so now we can search everybody's cell phones. That's not a warrant. Warrants are specific people, specific locations. This is America, folks. We can't give up our freedoms because they claim it gives us safety and security. We have to take care of our own safety and security.
That dovetails real nice. What I was going to say is the old quote from Benjamin Franklin: those who would give up security to attain, or would give up liberty to attain security, deserve neither.
Exactly.
Will get neither. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but something very close to that.
No, you're right. That's close enough to make my point. 100%, Paul.
Now let's go ahead and move off to blog posts. Rob, you have to have put something up in the last few weeks.
I talked about the 20,000 gun laws that don't work, and in particular why politicians want to write more of them. Politicians sell themselves in the media in order to get campaign cash, and one of the things they're selling is the falsehood of gun control. Also, Gary, you inspired me for a post. You had your mom on the show. Well, your mom and Doris Montrose inspired me to write an article about persuading people for armed self-defense. Now, supporting the right of armed self-defense is not a black and white issue. And you don't jump all the way from hating every gun owner to lobbying for firearms rights. I counted about 20 steps in between. There are more. I left some out. But what I wanted to make the point that changing someone's mind is moving them from wherever they are in that continuum to the next small step. It's not shouting your conclusions back at each other louder and louder. But first, you have to listen to know what they believe. The articles are up at Clash Daily, AmmoLand, and at slowfacts.wordpress.com. John, what can you tell us about No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money?
Well, since the last show, the issue of ridding North Carolina of our pistol purchase permit system, try saying that fast, has started to attract a lot of attention. The bill in question is House Bill 562. The gun prohibitionists, along with the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, are fighting to keep the law. Bloomberg is funding a media campaign to keep the law. I wrote a somewhat provocative post entitled, "If you support a law based on racism, are you a racist?" There is no question that the law mandating pistol permits was drafted with the intent to keep African Americans unarmed and subservient to the white, segregationist, Democrat power structure of North Carolina. My conclusion is that supporting a law based upon such a heinous intent does indeed make you at least a little bit racist. My blog can be found at onlygunsandmoney.blogspot.com.
I'm looking forward to reading that one. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And sharing the one with my mom, Rob.
Okay.
Okay, well, we had one more blog we need to plug, and that's Charlie Foxtrot's blog. You don't hear him on the air, but he is a big part of what you get to hear on the air. He does a lot of writing for us, and his is Not One More Gun Law. Just Google that one; it'll come right up. That does wrap up another episode of the Polite Society podcast. I'd like to thank Rachel Malone and, of course, John Pierce for joining us today, as well as Bob and Ben, who you heard some audio from. And we're going to go ahead and call this one. Everybody, we're going to be recording next Sunday. You guys all going to be here? Rob, you going to be here?
I'll be there.
John, you going to be around?
I'll be here.
And Gary, I would have to shoot you to get you not to be on the air. So I know.
Oh, don't do that.
All right. Well, that does it, folks. Until next time.
Stay safe.
Be aware.
And we'll see you down the road.
And I had the email up, so I didn't.
Yeah.
The music cued. I'll add it post. What I've been doing.
Evidently.
What I've been doing anyway is when I in post production where I've stopped recording. Actually, let me do this fast, guys. Everybody, live viewers, we're going to go ahead and shut everything down. I'm going to have a private conversation here with our on-air folks, but I do want to mention before we go, Concealment Solutions, Crusader Weaponry, New Jersey Second Amendment Society, Grassroots to Go, Firearm Safety Institute, and Firearms Policy Coalition. Please, please, please go visit our sponsors, and thank you so much for watching. You have hung out now for 2.5 hours if you have watched the whole thing, and we very much appreciate that. And we'll see you next Sunday. So let me go ahead and take us off the air here.